It's all finished now. The first round is all over. We've heard another 6 cellists, and actually the Schubert wasn't quite so challenging to hear the Schubert 6 more times, not least because 2 of the cellists that we heard today, I can name them because the jury, I feel as though I can name them now because the jury are now deciding. So there are 2 today that just completely blew me away, and one of them is a chap from Denmark called Jonathan Svensson, I think his name is. When you start listening to lots of different instrumentalists all in a row, you start noticing things like energy in the room, and I know that sometimes sounds like a slightly intangible thing, but actually some people, the way they walk on stage, just bring with them this whole sort of weird energy. It's like the energy comes first and then they follow it, and we either choose to go with it or we ignore it. It's a weird thing. It's a marvelous thing, and he came on stage and he had this. He reminded me of Daniel Trifonov, that sort of slightly otherworldly state. I don't mean that he's detached, but rather that he's just completely on it and incredibly engaging before he even started to play a note. And then when he played, my eyes went a bit watery. I mean, I got a little bit emotional, and it was about 5 to 12, something like that. The Russian cellist, rather, Vasily, a similarly engaging style in that the tone was just so consistent. Wherever he was playing on the bow, it was incredibly consistent, and that makes for a really compelling listen. The odd thing about him was that, and this is me speaking personally, but because I'd heard Jonathan Svensson before, actually his playing, which was Vasily's playing, which was just as perfect, and the phrasing was just as magical and enthralling. Actually, there was an element of his performance that made me think, oh, it feels a bit cold. It's that kind of listening. It's that kind of listening to classical music which makes the art form so utterly engaging. And I think that coming from the UK, where our appreciation of classical music, or certainly my impression of mainstream appreciation of classical music, is that it is driven by television and radio for the most part. I'm making sweeping generalisations here, but it's driven by television and radio, and actually that's great because it means that the content, the music, gets to the widest possible audience. But it also means that the real magical stuff about this art form is kind of lost on the majority of people, because the magic happens when you allow yourself to do what I've done over the past couple of days, just sit down and listen and recognise that I can't play the cello, I don't know how to do it, but that doesn't matter. When you see someone like, I'm going to mention his name again, Jonathan Svensson, come on and play Bach, and he's got his fingers stretched and sort of really well positioned at the fingerboard, and then you listen to the sound and you think, oh my God, my heart has stopped beating. Oh, this is the other thing. The other surprising thing about the competition process is that I had sort of gone into it thinking, and this is me from an audience point of view, I'd gone into it thinking I need to be able to pick who the winner is. I'd like to be able to sort of listen to the first round and go, yeah, I bet he's the one or she's the one. And actually my view has changed. What I think now is not who's going to be the winner, but who do I want to hear in the next round? Who do I want to hear again? And the reason for that is that we're going to hear entirely different repertoire in the next round. I mean, not entirely different, it's Beethoven, but it's an entirely different approach, different style, and it makes all sorts of different demands. From the cellists that you listen to, you're sort of thinking, actually, I'd really like to hear you do that. I'd like to hear you can do this amazingly well. What is it like when you do that? I have got a list of people. I've got a list of people which I'm going to just run through whilst the jury decide. I'm going to tell you who it is, and then we'll see whether I was right and they were wrong, or whether they were right and I was wrong. Hang on a minute. He's still there. He's still there. Right. So obviously, as those people who know me well, you should be aware that I have a special chart for the competition, partly filled in because I didn't really allow myself enough room, but it's all there. So, who are my runners and riders? I can't pronounce his name. Monpu Lee. He gave us a really sort of resonant bark. It almost appeared as though he was holding the cello between his legs instead of having a spike on the floor. I'm not sure whether that was the case. We had a Russian chap called Fedov Amazov. Dear, it's not very good pronunciation. He was amazing. He fiddled around with the microphone a bit. He brought his own seat stands that looked like flower pots. He had great poise. He was very strong, confident, demonstrative player. He was a great presence on stage. There's a Russian chap, Rustem. He was number 6 in day 1. Really liked him. Number 3 on day 2. I've already mentioned him, Jonathan Swenson. His performance was something which I can only describe in terms of me wanting to just say, I love you. It was amazing that a sound can elicit that kind of emotional response in me. And then this Russian chap, Vasily, who was number 5 on day 2, who I thought had this remarkable, clear tone. There was no question about his confidence. It wasn't that he was playing the music, he was merely commanding the instrument to play the music. Hearing this music and becoming more and more familiar with this music, you get to know where the twists and turns are in the score, where the danger points are. And in, for example, the Tchaikovsky, there's a bit in the Tchaikovsky where everything is done right at the bridge, and it's very high and it's very exposed, and it sounds like a nightmare. There are transitions in the Schubert sonata which also, even though they sound relatively straightforward, are they require a bit of care and attention. And the Rostropovich, like I said yesterday, is a showpiece. Vasily just rattled it off, and it was a remarkable thing. Can't wait for tomorrow. Really can't wait.